So while we're finishing up our last little bit of the climb, I thought I'd talk a little today about air pressure, specifically. Oops. Um, especially as it relates to pilots. I'm from Seattle, and I've had occasion to drive a car up to some relatively high altitudes. And one little experiment you can do when you're on a mountain driving trip at a fairly low altitude, go to a convenience store and buy a bag of potato chips, or what do they call them in England? I think they're called crisps. Buy a bag of crisps and see if you can buy a bag that has as much air content in it as possible. You know, the sealed bag always has a little bit of air in it. See if you can get one that's really packed tight. I remember one bag that was packaged in Los Angeles, and I think I was pretty assured that that was going to be packaged at a low altitude. And while you're driving up the mountainside, put the bag in the passenger seat or somewhere in the within reach or within eyesight, and then watch that bag as you start to climb altitude. Now, the air pressure inside the bag, as you can guess, doesn't change, but the air pressure outside the bag starts to decrease. There starts to be more space between the molecules. And as the air pressure decreases, the bag will start to appear to inflate. The bag will get fuller and fuller and fuller. And eventually, if you drive high enough and maybe the bag isn't sealed as strongly as it might otherwise be, you'll get a little explosion as the bag seals succumb to the inside pressure. And imagine the same thing happens with a balloon. You've got a balloon full of air, and as you climb, the balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And imagine the organs in your body, specifically your bladder, also expand and get bigger and bigger. And that's why if you've ever been on an unpressurized airplane, a little Cessna, and your friend takes you up flying, If you have to go to the bathroom a little bit while you're on the ground, you have to go to the bathroom a lot once you're up at altitude, because your bladder is expanding just like that potato chip bag and just like that balloon with the increase in altitude. I'm looking behind my left shoulder at my cat Sally. She's sleeping in her little cat bed. I can see we're just reaching the far shore of the English Channel. Actually, that's not true. I was looking at this body of water as the English Channel, or that's not it at all. This is the English Channel. We still have a good distance to go. There's Amsterdam. We're going to be right in that area, and our alternate is in that area. We moved our thrust levers from the toga setting. Takeoff go around is all the way forward. One notch behind that is the flex temperature setting for a flex climb. And then one notch behind that is the thrust climb setting. And that's what we're in right now. And we can leave the aircraft, the throttles in the thrust climb setting all the way to the landing while we're using auto thrust. You know, it's not as easy to do without my controls. You see, I push the control button, I get this console. Not sure what that is. There's 360. I think we can comfortably turn off the seatbelt sign. Now I remember that acronym I was mentioning earlier. CAVU. Clear. CAVU was clear. I forget what the A is. Clear something visibility unlimited. I'm going to have to look that up. Maybe, the great thing about having a computer is you can look up anything, anytime, for whatever reason. So maybe I'll do that. Here we have the takeoff calculator that we don't need anymore. And I'll just choose a new tab and type in CAVU and see what that. CAVU, an acronym used in aviation, ceiling and visibility unlimited. There we go. CAVU. Ceiling and visibility unlimited. We have a ground speed of 496 knots. Our airspeed is 450. Remember, we chose that rather high cost index, which is giving us this higher performance. Had we kept the default cost index, we would be flying a lot slower. I imagine a good pilot would be taking his or her flight log. Remember, we have our flight log. And he would be noting that we have been flying for 26 minutes. And he would compare that 26 minutes to the time en route. So to be at NTO, we should have been there in 10 minutes, and we're here in 26 minutes. So we've been dawdling along in comparison to our profile. And because of that, we've probably been burning more fuel as well. Actually, I take that back. These are for flight segments. 7 minutes for this segment, 10 minutes for this segment. So this is cumulative. So to equal that 26 minutes of flying, you would add up all these segments and you would see how close to 26 minutes that is. After Evely, our next waypoint is Pam. Two, 3 left is our assigned runway. That has not changed. Teber 3 Golf is our arrival route. That has not changed. So we are golden. My train of thought was after Everly, our next waypoint is PAM, P-A-M. This is a VOR, a very high omnidirectional radio signal. And a good pilot would know the frequency for PAM. So in addition to the GPS and the IRS system knowing where PAM is, he or she could tune in that VOR directly using this radio nav frequency. Now, unfortunately, I did not go through the due diligence of finding that frequency. Actually, let's see if it's in the database. I'm going to type in PAM for VOR1. Oh, there it is. 117.8. Okay. Now that it's in there, on a Boeing airplane, I could pull it up to the display. I'm sure there's a way of doing it on an Airbus. Just not fully confident of how to do that. Seatbelt lights coming on. Elevator down. You'll also start to see our ground speed decrease. We've got a 46 knot tailwind. We are going wickedly fast. because we've got a 46 knot tailwind that's helping us out. Actually, that's not really true. Our speed is determined by the flight computer, and any tailwind that we might have, the flight computer holds the speed that it's programmed with. By having the tailwind, we're not increasing our speed, but what we are doing is running at a lower thrust setting. So we're saving fuel. Here we are over Amsterdam. There's Frankfurt. I'm not as, again, I've never been to Germany, so I don't have the, what you call the lay of the land. I know Dusseldorf. I've flown into Dusseldorf a few times before. There's Munich. There's Dusseldorf. Dusseldorf right there. And there's Dusseldorf. So Frankfurt, just northwest of, more north than west, but northwest of Frankfurt. One of the complaints about one of the complaints about Microsoft Flight Simulator is that the clouds sometimes have a grainy appearance of them. And I think it has to do with the time of day and the angle of the sun, whether it looks really good or really grainy. And I've recently had some really nice looking clouds, but these today have a bit of a grainy appearance to them. And I can see where the argument is. One of the disadvantages of flying in Europe, if we were flying in the United States, we would have access to the FAA's charts. Now, I don't have a Navigraph subscription. If I did, I'd have SIDS, stars, diagrams, approaches, information for airports around the world through a private company called Jeppesen. In the United States, Jeppesen is a competitor to the federal government. But now there is a way I can download the current charts and then make them available during the flight. I just didn't have the energy to do that this morning. So we're trusting in the procedures that are in the airplane's database. I'm going to do a little, when we're finished with this flight, I'm going to go off the stream. I'm going to research why I don't get the Orbweaver to work for my views. I'm going to research what's called I believe it's a FS toolbox, which is a way of putting a banner on my stream, which will allow my viewers to track the progress of the flight in terms of length and altitude. And it also is going to give me some Navigraph-like moving maps. You know, your airplane icon will be superimposed on some moving maps. Now, they won't necessarily be aviation maps. They could be Google Maps taken from a road source, but at least you'd have the same type of maps that Navigraph supplies. I don't intend on getting a Navigraph subscription. I tell you a little secret. The AirAx cycle on the Pilot to ATC, the airplane, the flight simulator, they all could be different. If I were inclined to buy a Navigraph subscription, here's what I would do. I would not get the charts version, because you can get the charts version. You can get the moving airplane on a map from other sources. I would buy the upgrade to the AirAx cycle and let it synchronize the AirAx across all my flight simulator products. So let it go one AirAx cycle, and then I would cancel the subscription. And that way you're not paying every month. Again, procedures change very little. And as long as all the products are on the same AirAx cycle, you won't run into different names, and you can just be running at one point in history, you might say, instead of updating every 28 days. Anyway, that's my plan. Get as many of the add-ons that you want included on your computer, and then buy the Navigraph subscription, get everything updated, and then cancel the subscription. That's what I would do. And I think that's what I plan on doing once I get the add-ons loaded that I would like. I have a this happens in aviation all the time. You file your approach, the one you want, and then based on runway usage and traffic, the controllers will expect you to fly that approach. But as you get closer, they will start to give you radar vectors. They will vector you to your ILS runway, not necessarily how the approach is printed. And of course, if you were to lose radio communication with the ground, you are expected to fly your last instruction. The actual rule is you fly your last instruction or you fly the published approach. And that's what the controller is going to expect of you. So I imagine we're going to be taken off of our approach and we're going to be given radar vectors to our ILS runway, which is fine. The airplane can handle that. Matter of fact, speaking of the airplane, I need to go in and activate the approach. Sounds like we have a French controller. You remember on the radio frequency page of the flight computer, the rad nav button, I typed in the PAM VOR and I was given its frequency. I believe the way to get that on the screen, if I'm understanding, is that I can, instead of going to the constraints button, I would go to the VOR direct. I'm a little concerned that the controller is not giving us lower than flight level 170. I think at this point, you can see that the little descent, the descent icon keeps moving forward, which leads me to believe the airplane believes we should be descending. Well, I'm a little concerned. So, when you're a little concerned in the aviation world, you take action. So, I'm going to take action. Radar director GAF4 tree requests flight level 030. She's thinking about it. Well, while she's thinking about it, I'm gonna. You would never do this. Do what I say. Don't do what I do. You would never descend on your own. In radar coverage, of course. We'll try again. I can see her thinking about it. Radar director GAF4 tree request flight level 030. Well, that request didn't even register. I think the air traffic control program may have frozen up. Unfortunately, I think I can see the airport directly below us. I have made the mistake of not being proactive enough. That is a lesson for me. When in doubt, take command of the situation much earlier. You can see the runway is right below us. I'm going to You would never do this. I'm going to turn off the autopilot and use fly-by-wire, and I'm going to continue the descent, but I'm going to do it in a 360-degree turn. And I believe we're still too high. I'm going to make one more orbit. You can imagine in a busy landing environment, I'm not making any friends by doing this. And you know, you might have a feeling that all the passengers right now are screaming and that their shoulders are hitting up against the side of the airplane. As long as the turn is coordinated, passengers will feel the force of the movement. But if the turn is coordinated, it will be a downward force into their seats. It won't be a side to side force like you would get if you were in a car. We're still a little high. Let's go around again. In all that landing preparation, I did not continue losing altitude the way I should have. So we were still way too high. But now the advantage is I'm configured to land. So we're going to have a little fun before we finish up our stream and finish up our flight. We'd be landing out in the grass. Oh well. Well, we're out in the trees. You may have landed on the wrong runway. That is a understatement of the year. Oh well. Anyway, folks, we're gonna end the stream, and hope that was something you got use out of that. Otherwise, I'm kind of glad that flight's over. Have a great day. Goodbye.